Do you have enough clothes? Yes. Enough water? Yes. Weapons? Yes, yes, and yes. I have enough of everything, Naruto said while rolling his eyes in faux annoyance. Truthfully, he liked the attention and that someone worried enough about him to do all of this. But Tsunade's and Jiraiya's snickering was of no help at all. Shizen looked at her little brother figure as if to weigh the truth of his words. She's aware he dabbles in sealing and likely has his equipment there, but he's going to a foreign village in a desert, she feels right to worry. Oink. Taunton says while squirming in Shizen's arms. I won't forget, Tanchan. Naruto said. Alright, brat, go kick some ass. Also, see if you can get some action going. Tsunade said, slipping him some Ryo. Tsunade-sama, that's improper. Shizen scolded and Tsunade just waved her off. Naruto took the money and shot her a wink, no sense in not buttressing his income for this asinine mission. When Orochimaru Shursho informed him he'd be fighting Gaara, he was less than enthused. Especially not in Suna, a place with an excess of sand. He still believes he can beat his Suna counterpart, but he truthfully has little interest in him. Whatever Suna did to Gaara, they broke him and he's more mad dog than shinobi. What value is there in victory over a beast? Naruto's team had said their goodbyes the night before as they had a mission scheduled for today. Kurenai, like Shizune, ran down the list of things he needed to bring and ordered him to stay properly hydrated. Shikamaru wished him luck through a series of troublesomes, and Shino bid him fair travels. The last person he was to speak to was the person that had been training him nonstop for the previous month. Naruto hadn't added much to his ninjutsu arsenal, but he had improved on utilizing them. His lava and ice jutsu still took too much time and lacked proper control to be field ready, but Orochimaru was confident it would come with time. His morning started with a workout and then a spar with Kimimaro. He has come to like the stoic boy, even if said boy calls him Akagami instead of his name. Though as far as nicknames go, it is pretty benign. From there he'd eat and then start on his instruction from Orochimaru. More than anything, she was preparing him to face the Akatsuki members, and while he couldn't match their power, he could out-strategize them with her knowledge of their abilities. Various scenarios were covered for each of the known members, and some tentative plans were created. He'd have to develop some more jutsu to handle them, but he was confident he'd be as ready as he could be when the time came. After the study session, she'd work on his various skills, helping him grow more comfortable with his mother's kenjutsu style or other things like predicting behavior from body language. She even started teaching him some of her hibi style, though he'd have to get much more flexible to really incorporate it. That would usually go on until late afternoon, and he was free for the evening. He'd spend an hour absorbing the information from his shadow clones. Learning from the materials his mother stored in their vault, which was really just a sealing array that could be accessed from multiple points. If you knew the array and had the right chakra signature. Once he'd done that and meditated, he'd release the resistance seals as he only wore them during the day or when training and go visit his team or spend time with Tayuya and Karen. The three finally decided on a design for their house/future compound, and it would be located by the mask storage temple. Because of the security seals Naruto planned to incorporate along with some other features, the building would take a while, but it'd be worth it when it was all said and done. It had been a good month all told. He was gaining experience, refining his skills. Yep, everything was good. Except the repeated sex dreams he was having about Orochimaru. They didn't happen nightly, but each time got more graphic, and making eye contact with her the next morning was incredibly awkward for the Uzumaki. The only reason he managed to do so was out of fear where his traitorous eyes might drift to if left to their own devices. He didn't want to piss off a Sannin, especially not one that literally knew where he slept. But ignoring his burgeoning sexual awakening, it was a good month. I expect you to win, Orochimaru relayed while stroking his whiskered cheek. He fought back the knee-jerk reaction that came from people doing that, something he hadn't learned until Shizune did it after his mission to Ishval. Badass ninja do not purr. He just knew his father wouldn't, and he'd be no different. Hi, was the muted response. And don't do anything perverted with Jiraiya. Hi. After ruffling his hair, she walks away, confident her apprentice will handle the Kazekage's son. Well, brat, we need to go. Jiraiya spoke, then took off. Alright. Bye everyone, Naruto exclaimed and waved while catching up with the Gama Sannin. Orochimaru soon arrived to Hiruzen's office as she was to be assigned a mission. It was his justification for why she could not travel to Suna with her student. She found the thought amusing, until Kabuto arrived with an ANBU escort looking worse for wear. That wasn't amusing in the slightest. Both former traitor and former spy entered the Hokage's office to see Kakashi, Guy, and Asuma also there. Sensei. Orochimaru. We need to start the transition to making Oto a true protectorate of Konoha. I'm sending my top jounin with you to get the necessary information, including a full roster of your employed ninja and any projects you may have. I expect you back in a week's time. Is that all? Yes, leave within the hour. Hi. The group of 5 departed, each going to prepare their things and the jounin sensei going to inform their students they'd be gone for a week. Orochimaru waited until they were alone before she asked Kabuto how he was and what happened. He assured his mistress that it was a simple interrogation, nothing extreme. He wouldn't betray her for the leaf, he holds no love for the village nor the man that allowed that monster Danzo to trick his mother into trying to kill him. No, Konoha could never have his loyalty. I knew this would happen eventually. Good thing I ordered Girin to end my existing experiments, the snake Sannin said, causing Kabuto to readjust his glasses, a tic she noticed. Speak, Kabuto. I just don't know why we had to end our work, Orochimaru-sama. We could have been close to some outstanding breakthroughs. Or not, and it would jeopardize my position here for little gain. We'll start back up eventually, it's merely a short-term loss. He adjusted his glasses again. What, Kabuto? Nothing, Orochimaru-sama. Guess I was just invested in those experiments more than I realized. Understandable, she spoke and the two remained quiet. Guy found his team at their normal training grounds, all 3 working separately. It had only been 2 weeks since Niji got his prosthetic arm, but Guy could tell the boy was beyond relieved. He was happy, his team had been made whole and were working harder than ever, youthful flames, indeed. What concerned Guy is that much of their focus was not on enemy Nin but a comrade, one Uzumaki Naruto. He understands why. Naruto battered Niji and Lee's bodies, he also damaged their collective pride. They assumed they were the strongest genin in the village, and rightfully, so as Naruto was a genin in name only. But their defeats, the maiming and near murder, are forever etched in their memories. One hand, Guy wants to help them get over their near hatred for Naruto. By shinobi standards, he did nothing wrong and they need to understand this, especially if Sandaime-sama orders them to participate in the AIM invasion. They may have to work with Naruto, be led by him, and there won't be time for squabbles when real enemies are afoot. It may cost them their careers or their lives. But there is another part of him that wants them to keep this drive, as it may lead them to be as prepared for what is coming as anything else. It's a fine line and the normally boisterous jounin is at a loss of what to do. YOSH, my youthful students fall in, he shouted and awaited for them to do as instructed. Once they did, Guy proceeded to tell them of his mission to Oto and that he'd be gone for a week. He instructed them to continue their training and he'd see them soon. Wait, sensei. Isn't Orochimaru the Uzumaki bastard sensei? Is he going as well? Asked Tenten. No, Naruto has been assigned another mission in Suna. It appears the youthful Kazekage desires to see the match that would have been the Chunin exam finals. Oh, well I hope he isn't grievously injured by that lunatic. Tenten replied. It would be a shame if such a fate befell him. Niji rejoined. Your intentions are unyouthful, my students. He is a comrade and you do well to remember that. Now I must be off. Guy spoke before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Asuma was also informing his students of his upcoming departure and instructed them to get extra training in with their clans in his absence. Telling them to train together is a waste, 2 of them won't bother and the 3rd won't do anything to force the issue. His team is a mess and the should-be leader is becoming more and more disconnected from the rest. Hinata respects him, if sometimes grudgingly. He is man enough to admit that's his fault, he was too lax when they first formed. He had his reasons, it wasn't simply out of laziness, but given the existing dynamics, he should have been more forceful to start. With what's approaching, Asuma knows there isn't a chance in hell his team will be activated to participate. The only one even remotely close is Hinata, especially after she revealed her skills in archery. Such a long-range threat can't be dismissed. She's got the combat skills to be Chunin, but the leadership qualities haven't shown themselves, and he hasn't any clue on how to bring them out. His other charges just need to get bloody and mature. None of their C ranks have gone awry, so they have a false sense of what this life can entail, even for clan kids. He realized this during the Chunin exams, but hasn't been successful in getting them to transition. He'd have to amend that soon. Asuma dismissed them after relaying his orders. Hinata, hang back. Yes, sensei? Hinata, I'm going to be blunt. This team is a mess. And it's a mess because of 2 of its members. Like to guess which 2? Ino and Choji-kun would be the obvious answer, but I'm guessing they'd be too obvious. Yes, it's us. I should have been on you guys from the start, that's my fault and I will be rectifying it when I return. But you? You should be this team's leader, but you're content to just hang back and let the others continue on when you know better. Why? I don't want to be a leader. Interesting position for an heiress. Don't want to be that either. Then what do you want? Hinata snorted. That's an excellent question, sensei. Kakashi arrived to his team's training ground and watched as Kiba played with Akamaru, as it wasn't really training. Sakura sat under a tree staring at Sasuke, and Sasuke looked off into the void. He held back a sigh at his team. Kakashi knows depression. He suffered through it, battled it, and frankly felt he's lost to it more times than not, so he knows Sasuke even getting out of bed is a triumph. Losing your purpose, that is almost indescribable. He sympathizes with the last Uchiha and has ordered him to see a professional to help. It hasn't been long, so there aren't much in the way of results, but Sasuke didn't fight him on it, so he'll take it. Kiba would be fine, he has his family and his partner, but Kakashi would remain diligent so the Inuzuka doesn't become one-dimensional. Sakura. God, he didn't know what to do with Sakura. No branch of the shinobi arts seemed to grab her. Genjutsu? She could do a few, but the creativity and subtlety required to truly excel in the art. She didn't have it and didn't want to develop it. Iryujutsu? She could do it, and her brief tenure at the hospital during the Chunin exams break seemed to spark an ember, but the experienced Mednans found her ambivalence distasteful. Fair or not, they expected a certain level of zeal if you engaged in the healing arts. Taijutsu? If he made her, and he did make her. Ninjutsu? With her reserves, he'd almost be killing the kid if he pushed her too hard. She was good for her level, her skills were solidly genin, and he didn't know how to push her forward. Ma, my cute genin, I have news. All three stopped what they were doing and looked at Kakashi, making no move to actually come toward him. He'd have to work on their discipline as well. Sure, he didn't really portray any, but he was a former ANBU and an elite jounin, the rules were different for him. They'd have to earn their disrespect. I've been assigned a week-long mission to Oto. Please keep up with your training while I'm gone. Seeing nods, he departs, keenly aware that the little bastards didn't even say goodbye. If Naruto were here, he'd say goodbye. It was the day after Naruto and Orochimaru departed that the two newest Uzumaki of Konoha were walking around the village with Majila. Naruto wasn't taking her to Suna, and she didn't want to return to her realm, so Karen and Tayuya agreed to watch her. Karen was currently carrying said cub. This was necessary, but Majila loved to be carried and Karen loved soft, cuddlesome things, so it was working out. Tayuya rolled her eyes at the pair, but made no mention of their behavior, long grown accustomed to her cousin's quirks. Both were probationary genin, fitting for Karen and utter bullshit for Tayuya, if you asked her. She also felt her rank was reflective of her previous association than any real assessment of her skills, but she'd let it ride for now. The old man would be replaced soon enough, Orochimaru informed her, so there was no need to quibble about rank. She still didn't like the Sandaime, his facade of the kind grandfather felt fake and manipulative. Knowing what he did to Naruto, someone she had come to sorta like, just cemented her opinion of the man as someone to always be on guard around. The trio were looking for to have lunch, some of the village's establishments were cold in their reception of the two Uzumaki, so options were limited. Neither knew if it were the Orochimaru connection or the Naruto one, or some combination of the two, but it was real. However, they were never rude enough to be called on it, causing Tayuya to consider them cowards. If you have something to say, she felt, you should say it and stand on your words. The Uzumaki and summon settled on a sushi restaurant that serves them and leaves them in peace, none of the staff batting an eye at the inclusion of the panther cub. The restaurant had the choice between a counter service or sitting at a booth. The girls selected a corner booth as to not draw attention to themselves, no more than the talking animal would anyway. The three sat down and were enjoying their meal before they were interrupted by two kunoichi. Ino Yamanaka was a gossip. She'd admit as much with no shame. Her parents encouraged this as they felt it would passively increase her information-gathering skills. The problem was they never reinforced limits nor boundaries. This made Ino come off like a nosy busybody with no respect for other people's private information. So, when she saw the two redhead kunoichi sit at a booth, she knew they were from the newly recognized clan. The clan that had a former classmate as its head. But she didn't know much outside of that and could not accept such an oversight. So without all the unearned confidence that youth provides, Ino approached the table. Karen, being a censor, noticed the two kunoichi approaching first. She didn't feel any hostility coming from them, but was still ill at ease with them. Tayuya soon picked up on it as well but continued eating, confident if the two wanted trouble, she'd give them all they could handle and then some. Majila was enjoying her meal and not really concerned about anything else. "Hi, I'm Ino Yamanaka and this is Sakura Haruno, who might you be," she said, making an introduction. "Karen." "Tayuya." Majila kept eating. "Are you guys new to the village? I haven't seen you around before." "Yes." Tayuya answered tersely. "Where are you from originally?" Ino continued, hoping to get them to open up. "Why?" asked Karen. "I just want to get to know you, we don't have a lot of kunoichi around our age and thought maybe you guys could be our friends." "No, that'll never happen." Tayuya replied. "Why?" Sakura spoke for the first time, confused by the antipathy of the girls. Tayuya patted Majila on the head to get her attention. "Who are these girls, Mags?" Tayuya asked. "Oh, they were classmates with Oniai-chan before he graduated ahead of him." The blonde one told the pink one not to be his friend because he was bad. Ino and Sakura both looked down in shame. "May not have known shithead long, but we both know enough to not to want to associate with someone who would do that to our clansmen." Tayuya rejoined. "I was 6. I didn't know Naruto, but everyone said he was bad." "Don't care." Ino was speechless at the dismissal, turning to walk away in disbelief. Sakura followed her and both girls departed from the restaurant. Ino hadn't thought about how she'd met Sakura in years, the two having a falling out some years ago, and only now, after graduation, had they started to mend their severed bond. As an admitted gossip, it never really dawned on Ino how incurious she'd been about Naruto until recently. She'd readily believed the schoolyard consensus that he was a bad child, and the reactions from her academy sensei did nothing to disabuse her of that notion. Not even after he graduated, as many assumed he simply dropped out. Not until he wound up on Team 8 did anyone even think or mention him, and learning he'd been on the reserves for 3 years made everyone assumed he was just a dead last. Shikamaru tried to tell her differently, but Ino chalked it up to him not wanting the taint of Naruto's ineptitude. After the Chunin exam prelims, Ino was shocked at Naruto's skill with a sword but hadn't been overly impressed with his opponent, so really thought nothing of it. Him breezing through the finals and being acknowledged as a clan heir are what finally stoked Ino's interest in the redhead. Shikamaru was no help, he wouldn't divulge anything about his teammate, and when she asked why he just muttered troublesome and walked away. She never spoke to Shino and hadn't been willing to change that, not even to find out dirt about someone. And now, she'd been shut out by his clan members, as her previous childishness was thrown in her face. Sakura's thoughts mirrored Ino's. She remembered asking the chubby-cheek redhead to not bother her because he was bad. She remembers, vaguely, how hurt her looked, but he never attempted to speak to her again. Even during the few joint team functions he made no effort to talk to her or acknowledge she was even there. She never minded it, as most of her attention was dedicated to Sasuke. She knew Kakashi-sensei had some kind of previous relationship with him, having mentioned Naruto a time or two, but it was clear he thought highly of the rookie Chunin. Apparently, his opinion of her was so negative that his clan members wouldn't even consider her someone worth knowing, if for no other reason than to get their own impression of her. That made her angry. The two Uzumaki continued to enjoy their meal, both with smirks on their faces. Truthfully, Tayuya didn't give two shits about occurrences of childish groupthink. When Majila relayed the information on some of the girls of note around Naruto's age, even she made it clear that while Naruto was hurt initially, he simply focused on developing himself. It wasn't some long internalized personal slight. They didn't want to know him, so he just learned to not care. However, orders were orders. To Tayuya's interpretation, Orochimaru-sama ordered her and Karen to keep any too curious or openly interested cunt away from Naruto. And she would, as while she may like Naruto, she fears and respects Orochimaru-sama and wouldn't betray her. Karen wouldn't either. 2 days later found the team for Konoha outside the walls of Oto. Oto was interesting in that it looked like Konoha. The buildings were not built as tall, but you wouldn't know it was a shinobi village from the look. And that was by design. The real shinobi affairs happened in the underground facilities, and they were numerous. Asuma was awed by it all. The labyrinth of tunnels and subterranean levels was impressive and confusing. The Oto ninja were professional enough, but there was a clear tinge of fear as Orochimaru walked past. Asuma had not wanted to go on this mission. Not even a little. He, like Jiraiya, had always been jealous of his father's relationship with Orochimaru. How his father praised her natural genius, almost in contrast or criticism in Asuma's lack thereof. He hadn't known why his father suddenly distanced himself from his student, but clearly something had happened. He's always been uncomfortable around each of the Sannin, feeling they were the children his father truly wished he'd had. It may have been immature and incorrect, but it's how he felt. His father allowing Orochimaru to flee after her crimes just solidified that for him. They were, simply, held to a different standard. It was unfair and maddening. So, he really didn't want to be here. Didn't feel he needed to be here, but when he recalled Kurenai's worries over the Snake Sanon's designs on Naruto, he changed his mind. Deciphering the schemes and plots of Orochimaru is likely impossible for anyone with a less than genius intellect and some knowledge of how her mind works, but any information would be better than none. And given how her village looked, Asuma was confused as to why she'd want to come back. Only a handful of Konoha shinobi could be a threat to her, so it couldn't have been the missing mean status. But it couldn't have just been Naruto, Asuma thought. Hoped, actually. The four Konoha nin entered an office and Orochimaru was immediately greeted by the woman sitting at the desk. The office was plain, some shelving throughout with books and file folders. 2 chairs on the opposite side of the desk the woman was sitting, and the desk was large, but not overly ornate. Not what the Konoha team expected from Orochimaru. Orochimaru-sama, the woman said, while getting up. No need to get up, Giran-chan. Do you have all the information these upstanding Konoha jounin require? Hi, there are copies for each in their rooms. Efficient as always. Well, gentlemen, I'm sure Giran has arranged for someone to show you to your rooms. I have other things to see to, so I'll see you when we depart. What if we have questions? I'm sure Giran-chan can help you with whatever you need, Asuma. She said as she exited the office. The 3 men waited for their guide, and once he arrived, they too left from the office. Orochimaru was pleased to see most of her experiments had been more or less erased. It'd take time for that to happen at all of her bases, but Kimimaro was on the job, and with Jugo and Suigetsu aiding him, it shouldn't take long. She knew her sensei would attempt to find something, anything that would upend her agreement with the daimyo. She'd prepared for that and other eventualities. He was so far behind the game, he'd never be able to take the initiative. She wished she could take more credit for engineering his fall from grace, but it just so happens her schemes and Tsunade's actions coincided, but she had her part, so it was enough. Once removed from power, he wouldn't be a complete non-threat, but he'd certainly be a far less formidable one. She sometimes wondered if his disgrace was enough. Every member of a clan would know, so non-clan shinobi may through gossip, but had it gone far enough? Could he stand to lose more, she wondered. Kabuto had reported that Hiruzen and Asuma were getting closer, rebuilding their fractured relationship. Why should she allow that? Why should she allow him any comfort? No, his life was to be one of mounting indignities until they crushed him or he died. She knew what she had to do. Asuma had been thoroughly going over the information provided to him, taking special care to not burn any of the documents as he smoked. He appreciated that the room had seals that absorbed smoke. A queen-size bed, a desk, and his own personal bathroom. Not much, but he's had worse accommodations, certainly. He stopped reading when he heard the knock at his door and answered it, palming a trench knife behind his back. One he gripped even more tightly when he saw who was at the door. Can I help you? Kukuku, I was hoping we could talk for a bit. Is that okay, Asuma-kun? He wanted to say no, but realized her asking was just out of politeness, so he opened the door fully and allowed her in, sliding his knife back in his holster. What can I do for you? He said, walking back to the bed. Orochimaru stayed standing facing him. I'm curious about you, Asuma. I've known you for years, but I don't really know you. What makes you tick? What gets you up in the morning? Why did you join this mission? I have no idea about any of it. I highly doubt that. I'm sure someone of your genius could read me like an open book, he said, between drags of his cigarette. Kukuku, you flatterer. Smooth just like sensei. How are things going with Ms. Yuhi? That would be private, and why would you care? Why wouldn't I? She's Naruto-kun's sensei, so her life may affect his. Just concern for your student? Is that not enough? Would you like me to be interested in you, Asuma? No, I'm fine. One woman is more than enough for me. Sensei used to say that, until he didn't. What's that supposed to mean? Look, Asuma, you'll do what you want to do, but if you leave Yuhi-chan distraught, that may negatively impact Naruto-kun, and I can't have that. If you're just going to run around, then find someone else. For once be better than your father. Are you saying my father had an affair behind my mother's back? Yeah, right. Not the Honorable Sarutobi Hiruzen. Not in 1,000 years. You sure about that? Positive. And if he had, there's no way he'd let you know about it. Unless. Asuma said and squinted at the Sannin until the light switched on. No, I don't believe. I will never believe that. You don't have to, he's not why I'm here. Just be responsible, and if not, at least don't force her to abort the baby. Be better than your father in that regard. Orochimaru spat and vacated the room. She grinned all the way down the hallway. She'd be blunt and she knew Asuma's instincts would tell him she was attempting to manipulate him, pit him against his father for some reason. He wouldn't allow that, but she didn't need him to be disloyal, just distant. He may serve his father, but he wouldn't trust him, not for a while. Unless he can fully convince himself his father is innocent, Asuma will at the very least have doubts, and that small seed is enough. She's already won, again. The sun had only recently set and yet the temperature change was immediate. Suna, especially at night, was beautiful. Not the same way Konoha was, admittedly, but there was a stillness that was often hard to find in his home village. The air wasn't as crisp, feeling drying, but it was pleasing all the same. Naruto was sitting on the roof of his inn, taking in the village. The Konoha duo just arrived earlier today, the match was scheduled for tomorrow in their Chunin exam arena, and they were slated to leave the day after, health provided. Traveling with Jiraiya was fine. Naruto didn't take to his sense of humor, the Gama Sannin relied too heavily on innuendo for Naruto, and it felt disingenuous for some reason. However, when he wasn't making his pervy jokes, Jiraiya could be good company. The two discussed Fuinjutsu a bit and strategies to combat Gaara. Jiraiya was satisfied with Naruto's intended approach, so Naruto felt prepared. He wanted to enjoy the chicken sauté he ordered from the stand, but the killing intent directed toward him was making it impossible. He was familiar with the source. Gaara spilled killing into like a bottle with a hole in it leaked fluids. Naruto just wished he'd do something or leave, his presence was becoming bothersome. But seeing as his fellow Jinchuriki wasn't going to do anything but observe, Naruto decided to act. Can you just come on out? Naruto said, annoyance clear in his tone. Mother wants your blood, Uzumaki. Okay. Gaara was momentarily thrown for a loop. There had been many reactions to his declaration of his mother's desires, but never an okay. You're not afraid? Not really. You're strong for your age, sure, dangerous even, but no real reason to fear you now. Why not? You aren't attacking me. I don't believe you came here to attack me now, not when we'll fight tomorrow. So, what do you want? To tell you you're going to die tomorrow, and help me prove my existence. Gaara said, coming out of his confusion. How does that work? Now, it was Naruto's turn to be confused. I only exist for me, and I prove I'm alive by killing all those that would seek to harm me. Oh. That sounds lonely. So, you want to kill me because we have to fight tomorrow? Yes. Mother says you are strong and therefore are a threat to me. I must remove all threats. Then you're focused on the wrong person. The guy I came here with, he'd cracked both our skulls with minimal effort. That's power. We're both just exceptional for our ages. Besides, not everyone who could harm you would want to. That has not been my experience. You want to tell me about it? Why would you care, Uzumaki? It won't help you defeat me. Naruto rolled his eyes. I didn't think it would. Look, my food is getting cold, but I hate eating alone. You can come sit down and talk to me while we share this, or you can leave and let me eat in peace. I'm not trying to trick you, as far as I'm concerned, we aren't enemies. Gaara was initially hesitant. And the voice of his mother wasn't helping, but he decided to sit down and share a meal with the confusing redhead. The two Jinchuriki initially sat in silence, both staring at the moon, before Gaara spoke. He said the moon reminded him on the night his uncle tried to kill him and then relayed his experiences in Suna. How everyone viewed him as a monster, how no one cared for him, and when he decided to live only for himself. I get it. I mean, no one attempted to assassinate me, not that I know of at least, so your situation was worse than my own, but I do understand. I used to be really angry when I was younger, angry at everything and everyone. Why did they ignore me? Why did they seem to wish I wasn't there? Why could everyone else have friends and family but me? What had I done? Naruto said. I was so angry, but too weak to do anything about it, so I started to train. When I entered the academy and the sensei didn't like me, didn't want to treat me like everyone else, I trained even more. I wanted to prove I didn't need them. If they didn't want to teach me jutsu, I'd create my own. If they didn't want me at the academy, I'd graduate early. If the Sandaime didn't want to give me a team, I'd become the most powerful reservist ever. But you know what? What? The anger never went away. I was often too tired to think about it, but it'd still be there in the morning to greet me. It'd still be there when I ate, filling the silence of my life. My summons helped, I got them when I was 8 and it helped having them, but it wasn't enough. The glares and the shunning were still present. Creating my own ninjutsu didn't help either, not fully. Graduating early certainly didn't. All these things I was gaining and accomplishing diminished it but never removed it. So, what did you do? Gaara asked, truly interested in what the boy had to say. I had to let it all go. Part of the reason I was still angry wasn't just because it was unfair, but in wanting their acknowledgement. I had to accept I may never get it and truly embrace those that did see my value. In a sense, I forgave them. Not absolved, but I gave myself permission to not hate them anymore. I had my summons, I had my training, and I was starting to gain people who did see me for myself. One of the academy sensei that was so cold to me, apologized a few months after I graduated and said I could come to him if I ever had any questions. A couple of jounin helped me further my knowledge in their areas of specialty, one even became my jounin sensei. I'll probably never be universally loved, I can't change the minds of everyone, but I can value those that value me. I don't know what will happen tomorrow, but if you want, after everything is settled, maybe we can try being friends. Naruto suggested at the end. Is this a trick? No, Gaara, no trick, but I get why you think it might be. Even if you decide we can't be friends, try to find someone you can connect with. Living for yourself is hollow, and you don't deserve a hollow existence. Well, it's getting late, think about what I said, Gaara, and I'll see you tomorrow. Naruto said, leaving the roof. Gaara just sat there for a while, in silent debate, before shining away as well. The near midday sun couldn't be a more pronounced distinction from the night Naruto enjoyed. It was beaming, unrelentingly upon all beneath it. He'd arrived at the arena 20 minutes ago, waiting for the start of this farce. The arena was full of Suna shinobi and civilians, something that further annoyed Naruto. He'd be going to war with an organization of S-rank shinobi soon, so of course, he'd want to broadcast his techniques to any so inclined to see them. This was so very stupid. Not that Gaara wasn't a challenging opponent, he'd have to stay sharp to avoid getting seriously injured, it just seemed pointless. He was a shinobi, and this was a cockfight, even more so than the Chunin exams, because this had no larger purpose than one man's curiosity. Naruto truly disliked people that abused their authority, especially when they did it for idiotic reasons like this. Learning the man attempted to murder his own son only deepened his dislike into a true loathing. The Kazekage was scum, as far as Naruto was concerned. Gaara finally arrived and the proctor, the jounin that accompanied Gaara to Konoha, signaled a start and Gaara immediately sent his sand after Naruto. Naruto, wisely, made haste, performing a shunshin to create distance from his opponent. When coming up with a strategy to defeat Gaara, Naruto ran into some limitations, namely Gaara's sand defense. He didn't want to kill nor seriously harm an ally, the problem was anything that could penetrate his sand defense could penetrate him. When you make a hole in a human, they tend to die. He'd already resigned himself to not using his sword, blunted, and it couldn't cut through Gaara's defense, but edge active and it might cut something off Gaara. That was just another reason this fight blew a fat one. Deciding to go on the offense, Naruto performs another shunshin to close the distance and tests the reaction speed of Gaara's defense. Appearing to the right side of Gaara, Naruto throws a kick, but the sand intercepts it, meeting his shin before he could make contact. Undeterred, he spins around with increased speed and aims a hit on Gaara's back, but, once again, the sand blocks him, though he did get closer. Pulling back his fist, Naruto increases his speed again, performing a 3-hit combination to Gaara's left side. 2 were stop, but the last slipped through, and Gaara ate the body blow. Naruto was unable to follow up as he felt the sentient sand attempt to close around his fist. He dashed backward to create some distance again, signaling the end of their first exchange. The crowd, the Kazekage included, was shocked that someone managed to get through Gaara's defense with just taijutsu. Gaara was unhappy he was struck, never having been hit before. Naruto was shaking off the pain he felt and deduced Gaara had a layer of sand on his skin. He was taking deep breaths, not because the exchange was taxing as his natural stamina and training would allow him to do much more, but the adrenaline of trying to bypass the sand defense while avoiding it all the same. It was as he thought, his taijutsu would be of limited aid, the required degree of near perfection with him going near his top speed was just a waste of resources unless he softened Gaara up first. Gaara had gotten past whatever shock and discomfort he felt, his sand armor absorbing most of the impact, so the pain he felt was dull to begin with. He opted to take the initiative this time and not allow Naruto to attack as he pleased. Naruto could feel the ground moving beneath him and backflipped right before sand emerged underneath him. The sand began to give chase, but Naruto managed to dip and dodge each attempt. More focused on the sand than his opponent, he didn't see the sand spear headed toward him until it was too late. Narrowly, Naruto avoided serious damage, but it did graze his side, bloodying the Uzumaki. Reflexively, Naruto grabbed at his side and also stopped his movement, allowing Gaara to finally capture him with his sand, by his ankle. Naruto thought quickly and moved quicker still. He tossed 2 kunai up into the air, both hurtling at impressive speeds. Naruto managed to replace himself with one of the kunai before Gaara could perform his sand coffin, and watched as his kunai was crushed by the jutsu. Naruto instantly grabbed the second kunai he threw, as he appeared right beside it, and on instinct alone channeled the supersonic chakra into it and threw it at sand user. As Naruto fell to the ground, he watched as the kunai tore through Gaara's initial defense and even pierced his sand armor at the shoulder, slicing him cleanly. Everything seemed to stop when Gaara's blood started to spill from his wound. The audience was unnaturally silent, not quite able to believe what they were seeing. Before long their stupor was broken when they heard a shrill scream. "Blood! It's my blood," he said in a panic and quickly put up a sphere of dense sand around him. Naruto was at a loss as to how to proceed. He could get through the defense, he'd shown that, but it would only continue to hurt Gaara, and the boy was clearly unstable. If he pressed the advantage, the Jinchuriki might do something regrettable and a lot of people may get hurt, even if some of them deserved it. Naruto didn't want that on his conscience, so he waited. "And my blood. My blood." Gaara repeated, having a conversation none could hear. "You must kill him. He's just like the rest of them, he only wants to harm you. You don't need him, you don't need anyone. Is mother right? Was he lying? Is he like everyone else? Just wanting to deny my existence?" Gaara was confused by his short dinner with the Uzumaki. That pain he saw in the other boy's eyes was so familiar to him, only someone that had experienced a comparable hell of loneliness could have that look, but then what could he make of this? The boy claimed to want to be friends, but wounded him. He was lying. That's what people do, they lie so they can kill you. You must kill him. I must? But if he were trying to kill me, why hasn't he attacked me again? Because we are too powerful. His trick won't work again. Just let me out and I'll take care of him. And all your enemies, I'll kill them all for you. Yes, you could kill them all. Gaara agreed. With ease. Release me and I'll do just that. And then where would I be? Alone. You don't need other people. You only need me, no one else matters. Then why hasn't the pain ever gone away? Why does it always hurt no matter how many I kill? You just haven't killed all who would oppose you, once you do you'll see, it'll be better then. You're lying. Your way doesn't work, it has never worked. Gaara thought. Release me now. You are nothing without me, so release me. No. No, I won't. I'm going to follow a different path and you will not stop me. Gaara said and stopped the conversation. Only a few minutes had passed since he created his sand dome, but everyone was waiting for what he'd do. His siblings expected to see the miniature sand monster emerge as Gaara has used it before, but were shocked when the dome dropped and it was just Gaara holding his injured shoulder. He gave a slight smile to Naruto and Naruto nodded back in understanding. After a brief stare down, the match continued once again. Now with much more vehemence and resolve, Gaara attempted to trap Naruto in his sand, but like before, but much more carefully, Naruto slipped out of his traps, even running up a wall when cornered. The cut to his side had since healed, but lingering pain and tenderness limited Naruto's mobility. He was being pushed by the constant sand attacks, and he didn't like it. While his stamina may be superior to Gaara's, it wouldn't matter if he's the only one having to move. He dodged a wave of sand and resolved to get closer. When Naruto was within 10 feet, he blurred through a series of hand signs while inhaling and then exhaled, sub-vocalizing his jutsu. Fire style, combustion stream. The jutsu made a beeline for Gaara, and while his sand intercepted it. Gaara had not expected the outcome, though, as a thin layer of the sand detonated in front of him. The rest of the sand absorbed the heat and shrapnel, but couldn't absorb the concussive force, and Gaara was sent backward midair, facing the sky. Naruto wasted no time creating 3 shadow clones. One appeared under Gaara, kicking his back. The other 2 clones repeated the process, kicking the Suna Jinchuriki higher and higher, or further and further away from his protective sand. Before he could get his wits, Gaara saw Naruto above him, with a glowing orb in his right hand. Rasengan, he shouted mightily while bearing the underpowered jutsu in Gaara's stomach, sending him down at rapid speeds. Gaara landed with a thud, his sand hadn't been there to soften the blow, and all watched to see what would happen. It was clear, if you could see his face, Gaara was hurting and exhausted. He waved Baki over and the Jounin came to his ward. I give. Gaara said in his usual monotone, but there was a slight smile on his face. While suffering from disbelief, Baki still managed to call the match for Naruto, and after a period of silence the crowd erupted in cheers and applause at the battle they just witnessed. The Suna ninja gave both boys looks of respect and acknowledgement. It warmed something deep inside Naruto, and he could only smile bashfully as he scratched the back of his head. He waved to the crowd and walked to the exit, only to be met by Jiraiya. You did good, kid. Thanks, pervy sage. I told you not to call me that, brat. Get better jokes and I would, Tebeo. Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro arrived on the arena floor and picked their little brother up. Both were surprised he hadn't given in to his bijou and were impressed with his fight. Temari, Kankuro. I'm sorry for everything, he said, and both elder siblings smiled. It'd take a while, but maybe they could be a family again. Later that evening, the Sand siblings dropped in on Naruto at his room, Gaara's shoulder noticeably wrapped up. They brought a spread of native dishes and all had dinner together. Naruto enjoyed the food, especially the curried eggplant, but enjoyed the company even more. Temari and he exchanged some ideas on wind jutsu, whereas Kankuro put on an impromptu puppet show of their fight from earlier, except Gaara won this time. It was a nice night. Jiraiya was not having a nice night. He'd been summoned to the Kazekage's office, and while he had no desire to talk to the man, he knew he didn't have a choice. Kage were a lot of things, but rarely were they dull and joyless. Raza was a hard man that thought being a hard man was a personality. Jiraiya, through his network, knew about what the man did to his son and his attempts to kill the poor kid. If it wouldn't have destabilized the nation, Jiraiya considered removing the man from office. Nothing could justify what Raza attempted to do on multiple occasions. He arrived to the office with little fanfare, Raza only lifting his head as an acknowledgement that Jiraiya was there. He then handed Jiraiya a file folder. Jiraiya quickly skimmed the information, not liking what he was reading at all, and was, increasing, unconcerned with what the man's death would do to Wind Country. Once he finished reading, he met the man's eyes, Jiraiya's face a mask of emotionlessness. Why show me this? Jiraiya asked. Because you needed to know I have this. I was never fully sold on if your Jinchuriki was really his son. The facts my spies were able to gather suggested as much, and your interest in him did as well, but seeing him fight, it just felt like Minato. Naruto fights nothing like Minato, I should know seeing as how I trained him from a genin. You're right, their styles are nothing alike, but there's an intensity of focus there. Even if the boy never knew a single one of his father's infamous jutsu, in Suna we believe the blood will tell. Given how Minato's and my reign as a Kage were similar, I wanted to see who created the superior weapon. It appears the fourth Hokage bested me. I'm not confirming Naruto is Minato's son, but I will tell you Minato didn't seal the Kyuubi in Naruto to make him a weapon. Sure, Jiraiya. He was too noble for that. You still haven't told me what you want. Now? Nothing. But we are due to renegotiate our alliance a few months after your planned AIM invasion. I just want you to know I have options, and as much as IWA may hate Suna, they hate Minato Namikaze 1,000 times more. I won't be screwed over by Konoha again, Jiraiya. Tell your Sandaime that and you can keep that file. I have copies. Jiraiya simply took the file and left. The next morning, the Sand siblings bid Naruto a fond farewell and he did the same, delighted he may have made 3 new friends. As they traveled back, Naruto could tell something was bothering Jiraiya. His jokes were even more forced, but even as Naruto called him out on his act, Jiraiya wouldn't divulge any details, so he let up but was worried about his godfather. When the pair arrived back to Konoha, Naruto made a beeline toward the Hokage Tower and Jiraiya off to parts unknown. Naruto was motivated by something Gaara said during their parting. Naruto, it is admirable you let go of your hatred, but the villagers were wrong. While revenge is hollow, accountability is not. You deserve justice, my friend. He'd never really considered making the villagers pay after he'd resolved to move past his anger and resentment. He simply didn't know how to do so with the means available to him. He thought about, and on the last night of the trip it occurred to him what he needed to do. Some may hate him for it, some may call it petty, but Naruto was confident it was the right thing to do. He wasted no time arriving at the Hokage's office and gave his debrief, giving a detailed description of the fight. The old man seemed pleased with his win, but truthfully, Naruto didn't care how he felt about anything. As soon as his debrief concluded, Naruto started in on his second bit of business. Sandaime-sama, I speak to you now as the heir of the Uzumaki clan, as I have an official request. Hiruzen looked confused as to what clan business Naruto could have, but hoped it wasn't anything too serious. After his fight with Asuma, he just didn't want any more bad news. What is it, Naruto-kun? I'd like my clan's crest removed from all Jounin and Chunin vests, and anything else he may have appeared on. I'm revoking Konoha's privilege of bearing it as a sign of friendship. Konoha hasn't been a friend to the Uzumaki in some time. Hiruzen could only pinch his nose as the headache this was going to cause. Jiraiya hadn't just drifted off when he returned, he too had a destination in mind. He didn't like Raza's threat. True, any Kage would attempt to strengthen their negotiating position to do better for their village, so in that regard he couldn't fault Raza. But he was holding a knife to Naruto's throat and that Jiraiya would never abide. He resolved to not tell the old man what Raza had. If his plan worked out, the issue would be resolved before it ever came up. When he arrived to his destination, he laid out everything, every detail he had and his aims. It made his skin crawl, not what he was setting in motion. He'd been an assassin for decades, but who he'd gone to for help with this? He just hated allowing her to have anything over him. "You want me to kill Raza?" she said bluntly. "Yes," he said and waited for her list of demands. It was going to be painful and he prepared for her to take a pound of flesh. "Okay. Okay? Yes, okay. He'll be dead a month before the negotiations would be scheduled to begin." "And what do you want?" "What could I possibly want from you, Jiraiya?" "My body." She snorted in response. "I'd sooner seduce Tsunade." "Ooh, could I watch?" "And when the pervert appears, that means it's time for you to go." "Bye, Jiraiya." "Fine, I'm leaving, but don't think I'll allow you to blackmail me over this." "Goodbye, Jiraiya," she said again. "Bye." Orochimaru waited a few minutes after Jiraiya left and then trashed her study. She'd had plans to kill Raza when she was going to have Suna attack Konoha, but those plans changed. Now he's made himself an obstacle to her plans, and that simply could not be tolerated. Raza would never see his children reach adulthood, and all because he dared to threaten Naruto.